Sonic Universe Issue 84. Ixis in the past, in the lazily named Dark Castle, wants to make Eggman pay for ruining his plans to rule the Kingdom of Acorn. Acorn Kingdom sounds better, it's shorter. He tells Eggman off that their deal was that he would rule the islands, and Eggman would just mind them. Islands? Oh, it's a nice change of pace, that's interesting. Mobotropolis being a bunch of islands makes it feel more close to nature because it could be more full of trees and tropical and surrounded by the ocean. Then, as I wonder why Ixis hasn't been repeatedly hitting Eggman the whole time, and want to know why he captured Sonic at all, Wendy warns them that Tails took down all of the witch carters and is heading for the castle. Since he's noticeably smaller than them, I wish that was justified better instead of skipping past an entire Tails Sky Patrol adaptation. If he was smarter than he was self-righteous, I believe he just hit them all in the weak spot and cheap-shotted them to victory, which is the only way he could have made up for his being weaker than them. That and he can fly and avoid their attacks that way. But that's also kind of cheap, isn't it? I just wish I saw him attacking them, even in a few panels each. Wait, since when is Wendy a tech enthusiast? I don't remember her having a ray gun or inventing stuff. She's a witch. As stereotypical as possible. This is interesting though. I like that she's in an Eggmobile with wheels. It was sweet of Sonic to cheer and say, "Go Tails!" So why wouldn't Ixis and Wendy simply kill Sonic and Eggman the instant Tails shows up to free them, because he won't be able to keep them captured anymore? That makes sense instead of make them look like idiots. So again, the writer wrote himself into a corner, having murderous mages trap the hero and main villain. I like that Ixis called the witch carters degenerates. And Ixis doesn't want to come deal with Tails because he thinks he's Wendy's problem. When Sonic says there's nothing mere about Tails, it's sweet that Eggman actually admits that Sonic's right. But it's also out of character because he's a bad guy. He's also dumb enough to think Sonic can find a way out of these crystals. Also, why does he expect Sonic to help him? He won't die otherwise. Then sadly, we're completely ripped out of that story so that we can see Orbot tell Eggman in the present to stop napping so he can have a meeting with the OCs that feels like it takes forever. At least he says he'll get right to the point. Somehow, the Battlebird Armada leader is acting like he just learned for the first time that he's going to be used as a foot soldier when he was clearly recruited for combat earlier. Although I guess he just thought he was going on a mission, but what did he think he was going to do on the mission? Tundra says that if Wendy and Ixis were strong enough to oust him, he should be following them instead. I have a question, why are any of them dumb enough to be clearly disloyal to his face? This is immediately reminding me of how in Archie, he told the sub-bosses after something like this, that he could blow them up through their cybernetics whenever he wants. Conquering Storm has them, and that was the big reason our ninjas were given them, so he shouldn't need to give them a reminder that would be convoluted compared to anything other than reminding them he can kill them all. I might be relieved if he blew up Tundra since he's Rhoda's abusive father. He blew up the Endel just fine, that made it past the censors. Why make Eggman less competent for no reason? When a shield generator was stolen by Bunny earlier, Eggman activated the failsafe that he placed in all of their cybernetics. Just to use this guy as an example, he says that he, as in this ugly mutt, is completely paralyzed, and will stay that way until he thinks he's learned his lesson, in 50 years. But what did he do wrong? And more importantly, why didn't he tell all of the sub-bosses about this disloyalty punishment much earlier? Like, right after he gave them their cybernetics, to make sure they wouldn't betray him. Why would he wait until they betrayed him first and get himself inconvenienced? This guy never betrayed him though, he just failed to stop Bunny in time. But there's no way none of them ever failed before. He tells Orbot to file Tassel Boy away with the rest of them, saying that they don't take up much room in their tiny, dark holding slots. This is actually more dark than blowing up his sub-bosses because they're kept alive and aware the whole time. It's nightmarish, but it's also an idiotic waste of resources compared to simply blowing them up. He could either put explosives in them, or he could waste resources every single day on keeping a bunch of basically coma patients alive. What an idiot. It's more scary, but wouldn't it be more scarring for them to see someone get blown up than just be told that he's not able to move? For all they know, he's being told to pretend he can't move. They could easily accuse Eggman of lying here. And this should have been shown to us in a flashback, going back to right after he gave one of them cybernetics. They shouldn't have been dumb enough to take a tone with him at all. It was always obvious that their cybernetics had a drawback disloyalty clause, but to be fair, this is probably written for the people who unfortunately didn't read the preboot. I assumed the preboot punishment was still the case, but maybe those people wouldn't have. Still, consider this. Aside from the fact that Eggman told all the sub-bosses their mission, nothing has actually happened to progress the plot yet. Technically, this punishment is less dark because there's probably the chance that eventually one of the heroes could press a button to undo their paralysis. Well, Lee and Doug got healed just fine, but it took a while, and I always got the feeling she was lucky she survived at all. This is something that's undoable. For once, Eggman's asked an intelligent question, as the fox guy with way too round a head asked if they all have the risk of monsters if Dark Eye energy is involved, as well as the twins' forces. Never mind, I thought he was bringing up an interesting point that they could end up turning into monsters themselves, but of course Eggman doesn't have access to it. I instinctively read his dialogue as saying that they would run the risk of turning into monsters from proximity to Behringer and the like. Also, now that I think about it, why don't the witchcrafters turn into monsters from the energy if Sonic turns into the werehog? That'd be interesting. You can hardly tell that they're powered up. So the Fox sub-boss says that the monsters could be used to their advantage. That wasn't intelligent because you should know they always disappear at night. And with them, any potential brainwashing chip. I know he's not a fox, he's actually a... It starts with a T, some kind of endangered, extinct animal. But he's yellow like a fox, unfortunately. Eggman says no, saying that the spire at the center of it all is drawing in all the energy, so there's not enough ambient energy for even a tiny monster to form for them to fight. I wish it wasn't written to ask, what about the monsters? Because it just wasted our time, because we would have found out there are no monsters around anyways, and this could have been explained near the spire itself, or while they were fighting. The Witch Carters have already taken control of the Badnik Hordes and their defenses there. We could have been told this for the first time when these guys first encountered those Badnik Hordes in this arc. He says that he'll be splitting the sub-bosses into teams of 2 who will each be striking key targets. Hopefully all of the ugly-looking OCs will be paired with each other so I can ignore them easier. I mean, is there any actual point to reading their plots? Eggman's telling us what they're gonna do, so we don't need to watch them. It's so obvious that Eggman's gonna win in the end because he's the main villain of the games, and so he'll be shown preferential treatment that he clearly doesn't deserve from anybody, ever. An inventor mad scientist is just as much of a lazy cliche character as Wendy the Witch, but Wendy is less cliche because she's a tech enthusiast as well. So she's the better character, and she should be the main villain from now on. This is the kind of idea that should last more than just 4 issues. An entire giant story arc. Instead, I guess all his sub-bosses will eventually succeed. So there's no point in reading their scenes then because they're so predictable. They'll have to strike key targets, undermine Wendy's support so that when they move on to the full assault, they'll be crushed. Eggman says that Tundra and Acklet are on the same side, and Eggman says that well he knows they're apparently old enemies because I don't care. They should think of it as a team building experience. Okay, but this makes Eggman look like a bumbling idiot right away because he immediately shows a complete lack of ability to form a good team. He's just gonna pair up 2 people he knows will do nothing but bitterly argue and potentially sabotage each other. Why not pair them up with literally anyone else? I wouldn't mind seeing Tundra win over Acklet just to kill him off for making me look at him. At least Tundra is an interesting new idea. I like that we see them in the process of running across a metal bridge on their way to shut down the summoning spire while Eggman is saying what their mission is. They have to shut it down temporarily to cut them off. I guess it's only going to be temporary because they'll inevitably get back to it and turn it back on. Okay, so they're going to be successful because they're on Eggman's side. So because Ugly's here, now's my cue to start ignoring them. I doubt they're entertaining. They're probably assholes. What's the next team? Okay, so 2 bad-looking characters. At least Clove looks noticeably better than Thunderbolt, who's horrifically awful looking to the point where the only reason you'd know it was supposed to be a girl is that she's got eyelashes, apparently, and she's an infatuated fangirl of Eggman's. Which better be properly explained, because Metamorphia did this a whole lot better, being a robot programmed to admire Eggman. And so Grimer just did his job too well. So their job, because they're both quick... Wait, how does he know they're quicker than anyone else? Did he enter them in a marathon to test their abilities? Do they have super speed? No, that makes them impressive. Anyways, they're gonna be in charge of accessing the defensive systems and switching them off. So they're guaranteed to succeed, so I'm completely fucking ignoring them. I might miss a plot hole or two, I guess. But any plot hole would just be icing on the cake because the entire arc is completely forced anyways. Eggman shouldn't still be alive right now. So if we're talking about how things would be logically, well, there's no way to have any of this actually happen. So, nothing about this could ever be logical. Conquering Stormlord Hood. Oh, I like that the two pre-boot carryover characters are teaming up. Too bad Conquering looks a bit less like a girl. It's a really good thing that she wears purple all the time. And I always liked her hat. Eggman says that they're his best infiltrators by far. Why? I'd like to know why. They're supposed to find the witch carters and take them out. It really is a shame that, oh, they're the Flynn characters, so they get to come back from the pre-boot, but not anybody else. Hood complains all cowardly like that direct combat isn't his forte. I never got the impression in the pre-boot that he was a coward. This isn't how I imagined him. I'd expect him to be smug. But apparently this alternate universe version of him has villain decay. This doesn't make me feel better about the fact that he's a huge fan of flogging and was a monster in his own story arc. I want him to be competent to try to make up for it by impressing me all the time. You make up for a character being too unlikable by making him have a sympathetic moment or two, or getting taken down a peg properly by the heroes. Not by randomly turning him into a spineless coward and that's his only character now. Conquering tells him that he slinks onto a throne only after selling his homeland to Eggman, calling him safe and honorless. Everyone knows she's an evil, selfish monster. Why does she think she has any honor? I guess she doesn't, and that's the joke, because she thinks it's okay for her. It's interesting that Lord Hood develops on his kingdom's history. There hasn't been a Sylvania king in 100 years, and the bloodline of the 6 noble houses is really thin. So he asks her what he was supposed to do, surrender it to the Acorns? Then he calls the Decollets a lesser family, just to talk as if they're a potential option. Still, him saying this just makes it frustrating and unfair because he could have given it to the Acorns. But even then, I'm sure Eggman would have taken over it anyways. The heroes can only be in a few places at a time, and the Acorn Kingdom doesn't need what little military it probably has to be spread thin by also... But they could use soldiers native to Mercia though instead. So yeah, they probably could have defended it from Eggman by using troops from a different country. Rhoda could have invented stuff like ray guns to give to the soldiers so they could easily take care of any robots. Conquering shows her personality, saying they shouldn't give anyone anything. No bartering or bargaining. I guess her country doesn't have welfare or unemployment money. I wish I knew why he didn't want to surrender it to the Acorns and thought the Decollets were a lesser family. I'm forced to assume he was a snob against them because of racism. Maybe the reason he asked why she took command of anything is that he's sexist. But that's not explained, and she doesn't even question it. I'd expect her to take offense. Instead, she just says that she gathered the strongest, and they took what they wanted. She warns that she sees them and tells them to go somewhere. I always felt like I wish there was more to Commanding Storm as a character. Because her design is great, but she's just generic bad guy leader. So it always made me wonder what the hell Lightning Link saw in her. Then Cuckoo and Abyss are told to go together because they both have beaks, so that they can take out the backup generator to the refinery, so that everyone else's mission won't be a waste of time. Really? The Grand Cuckoo Army's leader is named Cuckoo? No wonder it's called their ridiculous name. But still, that's such a silly sounding name for their scary leader. I guess it's only silly from an outsider's perspective. Don't cuckoos steal the eggs, or kill the eggs of the rivals and lay their own eggs in other birds' nests? So, I guess cuckoos would be seen as scary. So, since a terrible looking character is in this subplot, I'm gonna ignore them. I'm sure they'll succeed perfectly because they're on Eggman's side, and any setbacks would just be boring, pointless, and temporary. I'm guessing they argue with each other like assholes, so who cares? Anyways, Eggman's told that all the teams are away. That was faster than I thought. And he says he's just putting the finishing touches on his trump card against Ixis. and Orbot beams a hologram out of his eyes saying system charge 100% with Eggman's body shape on it. Oh, it's balanced because Orbot says he's only got enough power to run it once, and only for 5 minutes. Only once? I guess it would exhaust the energy completely with no way to recycle it. Eggman says there'll be plenty of time to beat the ugly off that troll. Why is Ixis the only one acknowledged as ugly? Seriously, he's actually fine looking compared to Abyss. I believe Eggman because he's the main villain of the games, and so his eventual victory would be a foregone conclusion. So what's the point of the story arc? I'd love it if the sales for the rest of this arc were less than the sales of this. It proved that I'm not the only one. The Water Buffalo asked why he has to ride with Eggman. Eggman says it's because he has an odd number of minions, and he wants to fix that after this. Why is he wearing his goggles over his eyes? That makes him look even creepier, and wait, he's always covering his eyes with sunglasses. So what's the point of covering them with those goggles too at a time like this? It's not like he's going underwater or welding. And I'm sure sunglasses are made of the best materials possible, so why would he need goggles to protect his eyes too? Skipping all this because it looks like an unbearable waste of my time. I just caught that Clove was like, "You don't get to judge my sister." Why would her sister be judged by him? These characters fucking suck. I don't know why we're shown any more scenes of them. I like seeing that the wolf is sleeping. Caridia is showing her personality by having fun rocking back and forth in the Eggmobile. Although it does make her seem like a 4-year-old, which I doubt is in character. I don't think these guys had any characters to start with. I really like that Berenger hates waiting around because it's wasting time he could be spending breaking something. It's relatable of him to be bored. There was actually thought put into how the henchman would be bored with nothing to do. The minute after Commanding Storm insults the henchmen for having no discipline at all with their guards down, she completely ignores Hood's plan and rushes up to them stupidly, saying that she'll end this now. So she lacks discipline too, which is confusing for a ninja. So as a result, they get into a fight. And then I see a small dark guy monster tap Cuckoo on the shoulder. That's all I need to see to know that this is bullshit. Eggman clearly said that not a single monster would be able to form near the spire. So what the fuck was the point then if it turns out he was wrong? Oh, I know. It was to waste comic space because there was nothing good to fill it with. It's even lampshaded. Someone says that Eggman said there wouldn't be monsters. So this better be explained because it feels too arbitrary right now to be taken seriously. Anyways, Eggman rides a drill machine, saying that he timed this perfectly so that he'd hit Ixis and Wendy right when they'd lose control. Then he gets faced with a dark Gaia Titan who bothers him while he screams no, and the story ends there on a really silly cliffhanger because I know he has to eventually win, and he clearly said there wouldn't be any dark Gaia monsters. This issue is by Ian Flynn, and was about Eggman sending his sub-bosses on a mission to strike at Ixis and Wendy's defenses. All they really do is sneak around arguing, trying to get to their destination. Conquering Storm is a hypocrite, but acting undisciplined the second after she lectures about discipline. Rushing into a fight when it's obviously a better idea to let Hood stun the bad guys with his unique power first. She's reminding me of Sonic right here. If Hood had gotten a chance to use his power, I would have been more impressed. It's appalling that there's 2 scenes each dedicated to the horrible fanfiction characters when one was bad enough. Basically, the bad guys have to destroy the backup generator of Eggman's former base and beat up the henchmen, who are powered up by dark Gaia energy right now. But they're also going to be facing Lord Hood, who can stun anyone he wants. So if he attacks first, logically he should easily win over them, even with one hand tied behind his back. It's all about who strikes first though. If he gets knocked out, they're doomed. I don't see how she has any kind of chance. Then the story ends with Eggman getting threatened by a dark Gaia Titan, which is only annoying when it should be exciting, because Eggman specifically said no dark Gaia monsters could appear near the spire. Not even one! So those panels shouldn't have existed. On the bright side, at least I got to learn a bit about Mercy and history from Hood when I didn't have to get that. This shows that Flynn can develop on the history of a world, so why doesn't he do that more often? All he needs to do is have some dialogue about it. He doesn't need to show us scenes in the past featuring characters that don't care about one way or the other, although that would be more interesting to stare at.